The door shuts quietly. No cameras, no press, just a sealed room in Washington. Inside, lawyers open folders stamped confidential. Names appear. Some are familiar, some were never meant to be seen. And one truth becomes impossible to ignore: Jeffrey Epstein was not alone. For years, the whole world focused on one man, his money, his jets, his island, but behind him were women. Some recruited, some arranged, some stayed silent, and some were trapped inside the system before they even understood it. Newly released files reopen old wounds. They don't just ask what Epstein did, they ask who helped him and who paid the price. One woman is at the center of it all: a British woman, a trusted partner, a convicted trafficker, but she wasn't the only one. There were assistants who booked flights, schedulers who made calls, girls who were turned into recruiters, and survivors who are still fighting to be heard. This is not a story about glamour, it's a story about power, about how abuse hides behind routine, how control can wear a friendly face, and how women on every side of this scandal became part of Epstein's world, willingly or with no way out. Tonight we tell their stories. No rumors, no myth, but the woman around Jeffrey Epstein and what the latest files reveal about them. This is Denzel speaking, and welcome to the World of Intrigue. Do not forget to subscribe in the channel and hit the like button if you're looking for the truth. Before Epstein had an island, before the private jets, before the victims spoke up, there was Ghislaine Maxwell. She did not look dangerous. She did not act like a criminal. She moved through elite rooms with confidence: royalty, politicians, billionaires. To the outside world, she was a fixer, a connector, a woman who opened doors. But behind closed doors, prosecutors say she did something far darker. Maxwell did not just stand next to Epstein, she stood between him and the girls. According to court testimony, she spotted them: teenagers, often poor, often vulnerable. She promised them opportunity, money, education, a better future. Then she trained them: how to massage, how to obey, how not to ask questions. Some of those girls were later pushed to recruit others: friends, classmates, girls just like them. This wasn't chaos, it was a system. Maxwell handled the schedules, the rules, the punishments. When Epstein was arrested, many believed the story would end there, but it didn't. Years later, Maxwell sat alone in a courtroom. No powerful friends beside her, no cameras inside the room. The jury listened, survivors spoke, and the image shattered. In 2021, Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted, not as Epstein's girlfriend, not as a bystander, but as a trafficker. Yet, even after prison, the questions did not stop. Did she act alone? Did she protect powerful people? And why do newly released files still point back to her name? Because Maxwell wasn't just a part of Epstein's world, she helped to build it. And she wasn't the only woman who kept it running. Every system needs people who don't ask questions. Epstein had money, Maxwell had control, but the machine only worked because others handled the details: phone calls, schedules, flights, messages sent at the right time. They were not famous, they were not in photos, but they were always there. One of them was Sarah Kellen. To the outside world, she was just an assistant, young, polite, professional, but survivors tell a different story. They say Kellen scheduled appointments. She told girls when to come, who would be there, what Epstein expected. In court documents, her name appears again and again, not as a victim, not as a random employee, but as someone who knew the routine. Another name was mentioned: Ghislaine Giuffre. She worked for Epstein for years, handled travel, money, access. And if you wanted something from Epstein, you did not call him, you called her. Neither woman was ever convicted, and that's where the discomfort begins. Because the files show something disturbing. This operation did not need violence to function. It ran on normal behavior: calendars, emails, polite voices on the phone. Survivors describe walking into Epstein homes and seeing the same faces again and again. Familiar women, smiling, calm. That calm made it worse because it told the girls this must be normal. And That's how abuse survives, not through chaos, but through routine. To this day, both women deny wrongdoing and legally they remain free. But in the newly released files, their names do not disappear. They sit there quietly, waiting because if Epstein was the predator and Maxwell was the handler, then these women were the infrastructure, and the system does not collapse until you understand how it was built. The women behind the phones never touched the crime. They did not force doors open. They did not raise their voices. They just made sure the doors were unlocked. For every call that was answered, someone walked in. For every appointment on a calendar, a girl showed up. And that's where the system meets the victim, because on the other side of those schedules, those flights, those polite voices, was a teenager girl who did not know what she was stepping into. One of those girls was Virginia Giuffre. She did not meet a monster first. She met a system that looked normal. And that's what made it so dangerous. Virginia Giuffre was not looking for power, she was looking for help. Because she was a teenager working at a spa trying to survive, that's when she was noticed. A woman approached her, spoke softly, promised opportunity. That woman, Virginia later said, was Ghislaine Maxwell. What came next did not feel like a crime at first. It felt confusing, controlled, gradual. Virginia says she was taken to Epstein's homes, introduced to powerful men, told to obey, told this was normal, and when it became unbearable, she was told something worse. No one would ever believe her. For years, that threat worked. Epstein walked free, his friends stayed silent, and Virginia tried to rebuild her life. But silence has a breaking point. In 2015, she did something almost unthinkable. She spoke not anonymously, not quietly. She put her name on the record. She described what happened, who was there, and how the system worked. That response was brutal. She was attacked in the media, questioned, threatened with lawsuits, but she did not stop because Virginia understood something dangerous to the system. If one woman speaks, others realize they're not alone, and that's exactly what happened. More survivors came forward, more stories matched, more names appeared in court filings. Virginia wasn't just telling her story anymore, she was breaking a structure built on fear. Her testimony helped expose Maxwell, helped reopen cases, and helped force the whole world to look again. And when Epstein died in jail, many thought justice had died with him. Virginia disagreed. She kept pushing, kept naming, kept reminding the whole world this was never just about one man. It was about a network, a system, and the people who believed they would never be exposed. Virginia Giuffre did not win because she was powerful. She won because she refused to stay quiet. And once the silence broke, everything else began to collapse. Virginia spoke, others followed, and as their stories lined up, a pattern became impossible to ignore. This system did not just abuse girls, it reused them. Many survivors described the same moment after weeks or months. They were given a choice that wasn't really a choice. Bring another girl or lose everything. Money stopped, protection disappeared, threats began. Some were told it was harmless, some were told it was temporary, and some were told everyone does it. So they called friends, classmates, girls they trusted, not because they wanted to, but because the system trained them to survive. This is how Epstein's operation scaled. One predator, a few organizers, and victims turned into recruiters. It created confusion, shame, silence. Because how did you speak out when you feel guilty for what you were forced to do? That guilt was not an accident. It kept victims quiet. It protected the people at the top. Survivors later described seeing the same names again and again, the same assistants, the same schedules, the same rules. Nothing random, nothing uncontrolled. And when some girls tried to leave, they were reminded of what they had done. Not to punish them, but to trap them. By the time authorities started paying attention, the damage was already deep. Lives were scattered, memories fractured, trust destroyed. This wasn't just abuse, it was a psychological warfare, and it worked for years until it didn't, Because once survivors began telling the truth together, the system lost its greatest weapons: isolation. By now, the question is unavoidable. How did this last so long? Epstein did not hide in the shadows. He flew openly, he hosted openly, he met powerful people openly, and yet nothing happened. For years, the answer isn't mystery, it's power. Epstein had money, money buys lawyers, money buys time, money buys silence, but money alone wasn't enough. He surrounded himself with people who made problems disappear. Complaints were delayed, investigations stalled, deals were made quietly. When victims went to police, they were often treated like the problem: too young, too messy, too unreliable. Meanwhile, Epstein kept moving from Florida to New York, from New Mexico to a private island. Every move reset the clock. And then there was the names: politicians, business leaders, celebrities. Some appeared in flight logs, some in contact books, some in testimony. Not all were accused of crimes, not all were charged, but their persistence matter, because when powerful people orbit someone, that person looks untouchable, and Epstein used the image as a shield. Even after his first arrest in 2008, the punishment barely slowed him down. A deal was struck, the case was sealed, and the system sent a message: this man is protected. That message reached every victim, every assistant, every witness. And it worked until one thing changed. The internet remembered, journals dug, survivors connected, and the silence cracked. Epstein was arrested again in 2019. This time there was no quiet exit, but before a full trial could happen, he was found dead in his cell. Officially, suicide, publicly, disbelief. For many victims, it felt like justice had been stolen again. But the story did not end there, because Epstein was gone, but the files remained. And so did the woman, the assistants, the enablers, the survivors. And that brings us to now. The new files do not bring closure, they bring clarity. They show patterns, repeated names, familiar roles. They confirm what survivors said years ago. This was never a single man acting alone, but the files also reveal something uncomfortable. Many questions remain unanswered. Some names are still protected. Some rules are still described as unclear. Justice in this story is incomplete. Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison. Jeffrey Epstein is dead, but the system that protected them, it was never fully exposed. What changed is this: survivors are no longer isolated. Their stories are recorded, their voices are permanent. What didn't change is the cost. Years lost, trauma carried, truth delayed, and that delayed mattered. Because every year of silence was another year the system survived. The story is often told as a scandal, but it's not. It's a warning about what happens when power replaces accountability, when silence becomes routine, when systems protect themselves instead of people. The women around Jeffrey Epstein were not all the same. Some enabled, some obeyed, some survived, some fought back. But together, their stories reveal something bigger than one man. They reveal how abuse hides in plain sight. So the real question isn't just how or who was involved. It's this: how many systems like this still exist, and how many victims are still waiting to be believed. If you want more stories like this, stories that dig deeper than headlines, subscribe, share, and keep asking questions, because silence is what protected Epstein, and truth is the only thing that ever broke his word.